hey, let's build a open source platform for people, teams to register their assets, know who has access to what, and let's capitalize on the creation of QR codes.
We are interested on how you are actually growing.
This QR code label, you can download it and print it. Like for instance, if you add the tag retired, that something happens.
It seems like this is easily done in shells.
People can do whatever they want.
Basically, the small idea that we're trying to bring to the world.
Super fun to have you, man, here. We already checked a little bit of what you got, what is your business, and it looks really cool. So, glad to have you here, man. Welcome.
No. Pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course.
Yes, and for our listeners and viewers, Carlos actually reached out to me via email and said like, hey, do you do like more than just marketing tools? And because, I have an asset management system, does it really fit within your scope? And I'm like, exactly, that's the type of, stories and softwares we want to also feature on our podcast, because obviously it's not all about marketing. There are so many problems that we're able to solve with software or software as a service. I actually, just a little bit of a background, I actually have a small Airbnb business that I do on the side. I mean, once you've been
100 apartments.
Yeah, no.
Of course.
Small side hustle.
Yeah, side hustle, yeah. So yeah, I just have a few things that I do Airbnb wise, and I'm kind of getting more into it. And one of the things that I realized is that I need to catalog everything I have across multiple properties. So, and obviously as a Hacker News, addicted junkie, I'm always scrolling and searching for new cool stuff, interesting news and so forth. And I saw post, I think from you, Carlos, in the show Hacker News section, where you mentioned shelf.nu, and you also, I think, kind of, highlighted that this is also a self-hosted solution, open source solution, that you can either host yourself and not pay anything, or you can have a hosted solution where you take care of everything. And of course, the first thing that I did, I signed up for the free plan just to test it and see how it works. And it looks really promising. But I don't want to talk about your product. I think you will do a much better job. So, Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, sorry, Mikhail.
We're thinking together. Yeah, and what I just wanted to say is that what it comes to that, what is our scope is that we also when we're talking about the marketing stuff, we can also talk about how you are generating traffic to your website and what is the way you've got your backlinks and all that stuff. So, even though your stuff is not related directly to marketing stuff, we are interested on how you are actually growing.
So, Carlos, could you tell a little bit about yourself, your background, and also the interesting part? How did you come up with the idea, and also like where you at currently?
Okay, well, that's a lot of information to give. So, first of all, my name is Carlos Virreira. I am recently turned 33. I actually just turned 33 yesterday. And I am a person that was born in Argentina. I lived most of my life in Bolivia, and I have been living in the Netherlands for around 14 years. So I've been in this side of the world, and I studied here in the university. I did actually business and communication studies. So I actually did a lot of strategic business, creative business plans, and so on, and always had a fascination for programming. And together with one of my roommates, we decided to start a company already 11 years ago. So as soon as we graduated, we started a small code shop. So I would take the role of being the more, let's say, commercial-driven human in the mix. I would talk to customers. I would try to figure out what they're trying to achieve, and we would try to help them through creating, like, let's say, designs and also build little tools for them. This is a path that I carried on for many years, and it's a role I still have. As you all know, we had a pandemic, and it caused a little bit of a shuffle in the ways that our companies work and operate. one of the consequences of that was that my team, which was in-house, which was in office, on premise, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to go back to their hometowns. Everybody wanted to go back to their roots. And it meant that, first of all, I had to adjust to that new way of operation, but also I really needed my staff to have proper working conditions. I wanted to have good keyboards, good monitors, good standing desks, good work computers, all this stuff. And what we noticed is that our insurance rates were going up. And we were getting basically, let's call it a shadow pre-calculated insurance cost for our equipment, in which we started to have a conversation. It's like, hey, how can we possibly reduce this? They're like, hey, you need a proper asset registry. We need to know what your assets are, like how many desks you have, how many monitors, what are the serial numbers, what are the conditions, who has access to what, where were they purchased. And this usually used to be a little bit of a, let's call it an accounting-related task. You buy something, you want to depreciate it, but never an insurance-driven task, or let's call it productivity task. So we decided, hey, why don't we build something for this? And that's how we ended up thinking of, hey, let's build an open source platform for people, teams to register their assets, know who has access to what, and let's capitalize on the creation of QR codes, because the whole market was driven by, bar labels, like
barcodes. Yeah.
So that's how it happened. Yeah.
I can notice that you actually have a QR code on your headphones there as well. So
on my headphone.
I think you're carrying the example on how it actually works.
Absolutely. Yes.
So what does it do? What does it do if you scan your headphones with a mobile device? What happens?
Okay, so a few things happen. One of the things that I'm very happy about is that depending on... so let's take a step back. So for instance, a traditional asset management system, there's a person that has an actual hardware device to scan them, and then some system opens up, very rigid and very unaccessible for people. What happens with our system is that anybody that has a mobile phone, again, thanks to COVID, now all phones have the capacity to scan QR codes, right? So anybody from your organization can interact with this. My staff members can scan their code and raise an issue. Say, hey, my laptop is not working properly. Instead of somebody getting called and say, hey, this issue is happening, we can add those tags. So whenever you scan the code, we, depending on your role within the organization, show you something else. So if I scan that code as an admin, two things will happen. First of all, on every scan, we ask for location permissions, and that allows us to pin in a map the last known scanned location of the asset, which makes this system works as a little bit of a hybrid between a passive, an active tracker and a passive tracker.
Kind of like an airdrop. Like a air tag.
Air tag. Yeah.
It's like the cheapest air tag. It's like you can get that benefit without having to spend like $30 per asset.
Air tag from Wix.
Exactly.
Jesus, I could confuse everything right now.
It's like a wish tag. Imagine handling with like a tag here hanging around. Like it's just not practical. So that's what happens when you scan the tag. We log the location. We grab the geolocation API. It's a web native API actually, and we pin it. Actually, we did tests even offshore, and the geolocation is so accurate. The satellite network is so good that we can all tap into it. And moreover, we, if you're an unauthorized user, we show you a contact form. Let's say that I actually have some props.
All right.
Oh wow, you came prepared.
Yeah, of course. So let's say that this is your hard drive, and you have your tag with your company, and if lost, call this number. But if you left this in an airport, and of course, this is not the main benefit of Shelf, but a side benefit is that whoever scans this code, well, first of all, we'll ask the location permission, so we will be able to show you, hey, an iPhone scanned this in this geographic location, but they can also leave you a message. They can actually say, hey, I got this thing. And then it's up to you how you are going to persuade the human to return you the item.
Yeah.
But it's a side benefit from it. So the assets themselves become, they're tagged, they're having a user to be authorized to use it, and if the case they get lost, they can let you know what's going on. But basically what we created is that each object that your company has that you want to track becomes an entry in a secure database where you can interact with it. And that's basically the small idea that we're trying to bring to the world.
Cool. That sounds very good. So if you think from the asset management perspective, it's not really aimed at things like, hey, I have like 12 forks, in my kitchen or anything like that. No. So it needs to be, at least the size of a QR code, at least, and it needs to be something more substantial. So it's not really good for like basic inventory, for example, for like Airbnb, where you have 12 forks and you have 15 plates, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now we have one plate less. It's not really for that.
Yes.
It's more, it's
not plate tracking.
No plate tracking. The thing is, like, I actually, this is something that I think so deeply about, Artem.
Really?
Yeah, because it's something that I know, like, what am I building? Is this an ERP? Is this an inventory management system, or this is an asset tracking system? And I really want to create an asset tracking system. And I found a small way to describe what an asset is. And what I often say is, if it breaks and nobody calls you, it's not an asset. But if it breaks and somebody panics and calls you and say like, hey, AKA your coffee machine, you have a coffee machine in your Airbnb. I need to drink many cups of coffee a day. If I rent your property and it shows me a picture of a beautiful Nespresso machine or whatever, and it doesn't work, I will scan that tag and I will maybe flag it. You will get a notification. The alternative would be I will give you a bad review, or I will feel like you've left me without any method of correcting this. So there you go. Like, if I'm missing one plate, but I have 3 instead of 6, I won't give you a bad review. But if let's say something like the shower doesn't keep hot water or something, you could consider it as being a trackable thing, as something that you might want to create. And actually, to continue on this is one of the ideas that I really want to introduce. I would love it for you, Artem, to be able to set a redirect post scan. So if on Shelf you can register your assets, but that when it's scanned not by you or any of your team members, that it directs them to any page. Perhaps you are so smart and you do a video guide of how to use every piece of equipment of your house.
Oh my God, I like you already, because my question was, and this is the reason why I love meeting people like you, founders, because you always learn something new. Last time I learned about Stripe Atlas, and that you can really quickly incorporate in Delaware. So every time, like, one of the selfish benefits from doing this is just learning together and sharing experiences. But that was exactly my question. So because I'm a tech junkie, so to speak, I want one of my Airbnbs to have like smart home, right? So that, iPad somewhere in the wall and you can control everything. And one of the things that I really hate when I travel myself, and I've been traveling quite a lot and spending some time in different Airbnbs, I hate that there are very rarely any kind of instructions. So if you want to use a washer, they're like, you'll figure it out. Or if it's a coffee machine, sometimes they can be a little bit convoluted. All of a sudden, weird sounds coming out. There is water coming, and you're like, what the hell is going on? So my idea was, I will have QR codes, and the QR codes will allow you to report an issue or see a video tour or video instructions on how to use that item. So as it sounds, based on what you have articulated, it seems like this is easily done in Shelf.
Yes, it's a feature that I'm trying to push for it to be released fast, but basically inside of each asset object in your database, you should be able to define what happens when each user scans it. So if you scan it, you get to see the asset edit page, right? You might want to change some information. If it's a team member, maybe they want to flag an object. Perhaps you increase your operations, you have, like Michael said, hundreds of Airbnbs, you might have a maintenance crew, and they should go to check and flag it.
Or maybe a cleaner, right? Or maybe a cleaner, exactly, if she notices that, for example, vacuum cleaner is dead or something.
So that infrastructure layer is what I want to provide to the world, and do that very well, and not try to take the spotlight on any other areas of like asset counting, let's say, or doing other more, like just stay topically in this lane to try to make this like the best one. So my goal is to find companies that are very, let's call it, process and excellence focused, and they really want to give the best experience to their customers, and they see how to integrate this technology layer to their work processes. So that's what we're building.
That's pretty awesome. I think we have enough startups who just, integrate ChatGPT and say, like, we will revolutionize the world. I think you're solving. What I like about your product is that you're kind of like scratching your own itch, So basically, you became your first customer in a sense.
Absolutely.
And you have a team of people who are constantly testing your product because they're using it, reporting, and so forth. Another thing that really, would be interesting to hear is that you decided to go open source route. That's not very normal when it comes to SaaS startups. Usually it's just like, hey, let's create something, a little bit of React, Node.js, whatever, push it to Vercel, and let's charge $15 and see what sticks. But you decided to go right from the beginning, open source route. You give an opportunity to host it yourself, do everything yourself, and then you don't have support and so forth, but you're able to use the software free within certain specific limits. So why did you choose to open source your product? A lot of people, before you answer, a lot of people, especially software developers, many times they don't want to release their product as open source solution because they're kind of afraid that somebody will look at their code and like, this is spaghetti madness. Like this is not really good.
Yeah. It truly feels like walking with my dirty laundry behind me. To have the whole code base exposed. But Artem and Michael, like, what can I say about open source? From a philosophical point of view, I believe that I wouldn't have achieved anything in my career if it was not for open source. So I always had the desire to create something of immense value. So let's say give 100 value units and be comfortable and sleep well at night knowing that I might capture only one out of those 100 value units in monetary value. I always looked up to Matt Mullenweg from WordPress. I think I made most of my money in my first 10 years as an agency building WordPress sites, and I never paid $1 to this guy. Thanks to the ecosystem that he created, the open source CMS, a whole market came to be, and I, as a person, just loved that. Like when I first encountered that, it just really fascinated me. So I always had in the back of my head that if I were to build a product, it would have to be open source, because I believe that if software is eating the world, open source software is going to eat software, and it just has to do with the fact that there's more developer support, there's more momentum that can be made. And honestly, I believe that going for a non-proprietary open source solution makes that the people that are intrinsically motivated to improve the code, to be critical about it, like those are the best people you want to have in the beginning, looking at what you're doing. So yes, it's a very scary thing, and I believe that my parents think I'm crazy, but on the other hand, it's gotten me to meet with very, very smart and talented people, and I feel like that's very valuable. So that's why we decided to go open source. Just put it out there. And right now, I think there's like 50 forks, so there must be 50 people that are running their versions of Shelf. Many people that I don't know, maybe they just git cloned it and they're just running their own instances. But every once in a while, there's some issues that come up and people are like, hey, why don't you do this? And when we check, they know our code base very well. So, but it's a new world for us.
You know, when we're comparing your stuff to WordPress in a way, is that you still, you know, you have also the paid plan. So it's not just giving everything for free. No. You know, people can do whatever they want. You can also generate a cash flow there. And
absolutely,
you're really generous. When you know, I'm looking at your pricing signs, you know, what you're giving for the free plans. But I also think that, you know, the $19 a month for the Plus membership, you know, I mean, that is, I think that should be a quite no-brainer for people who are really looking into these asset management softwares.
Yeah, and you'll be getting that $19 from me for sure once I start renovating my apartment, because I just felt the only problem that I encountered in your software is that I couldn't get the map functionality to work correctly. I gave it addresses in like 14 different formats, and I was like, come on. I even gave like geolocation and stuff like that. But the beauty is, because it's open source, I could actually go in and see how you actually are working with the addresses. And that, I think, is a very powerful thing. You just go in, you see like, so this function is responsible for getting the address. Okay, now I know which format you're expecting. So I really love that approach. But I think it's a balance, right? You want to give stuff for free. You want people to be able to host it, but you also want to create a business model so that you can continue doing this for a very long time. So it's a fine balance. I don't remember if you had like a Docker image like ready to go.
No, we do not, but we're talking with a party that's going to help us maybe like do a one-click environment for Shelf and stuff like that. But we started Shelf like less than a year ago. And it has been picking up. And actually, you mentioned Hacker News, and that's another of these stories that I did not know anything about Hacker News, like not much. And I just posted it there and like as a link, and it picked up a lot. And what it did give me, it made me realize that asset management is it's an activity that many people wanted to do, but that there was no clear obvious winner in this category. If you are not of course enterprise, you can go to SAP or IBM Maxim or whatever, these guys will give you stuff, but very hard to buy, very hard to know what the tool does. So I think it's important for us to do it. Right now we're working on better documentation for self-hosting, so that it's much more accessible for you to spend a few hours and set up your own instance. But there's also the balance that I am currently talking with a lot of very interesting people, and they have a lot of demands, and I'm trying to ship very fast. So it's the balance of okay, let's ship fast, but also make sure that people have a clear upgrade path for their installations. But that's super exciting stuff.
Yeah. I have a Synology, server. If you're familiar with Synology NAS, so basically it's a file server that is pretty powerful. I think I have 16 gigs in it, and a very powerful CPU. So I actually run different Docker instances, and I became, big fan of self-hosted solutions. And there is a really good Reddit community, self-hosted. And there is nowadays you can get pretty much everything in your own server if you want to. There's pretty much solution for everything. And I really like the idea of having your solution as a self-hosted option, so that I could play around with it, see how it works. And then, that's why I was asking about Docker image, because Docker image is so much easier to run on Synology.
Yeah.
You just point it to an image, click go, and you're up and running.
No, for sure, it's an area we have to work. And then, indeed, as you said, it's the balance between giving something, but also making sure that there's enough runway or funding to keep fueling this. So for now, as you said, it's a no-brainer. We have many migrants from other systems that are hopping into ours. They're taking the compromise that I mean, the other tools had 10 years to get to the point where they are, and we are like less than a year. But we're trying to take the best, smartest moves, and they're appreciating some of the features. But we have a backlog. We have a lot of stuff to do. I can tell you actually one of the stuff that we're going to be working on. It's called bookings and reservations. So, for instance, let's say that you have fixed IT assets, you have fixed assets, but you might have a gear room full of expensive camera gear that you would want people to see, reserve, and book ahead of time, and maybe even sign off. So that area we have to work on, and it has to do a lot with like time zones and like availability of assets and stuff like this. But I think that it will be the next step in order for me to be able to localize this in Spanish and go to some universities in South America, say, use this thing, because let's say you have a audio-visual department where you have a lot of camera gear, recording gear, you have students that need to get access to this. Just use it, just run this, and you have an infra that is way better than managing this with pieces of paper or Excel sheets. So that's an area I'm very interested in building. But yeah, every day defining and scoping out new stuff. Yeah.
One thing that, again, may be interesting, I actually ran into a founder of PikaPods, P-I-K-A Pods. So PikaPods, and really, really interesting guy. And he basically offers very intuitive, easy to use, and most importantly, like dirt cheap hosting for open source software. So you just log in, choose the software you want from the list, click go, and he does everything, like spins up the instance, sets up, SSL certificates, all of that good stuff.
Very good.
And it's about like, I pay about $1 per instance a month.
Wow.
So yeah, of course it depends. Good. It depends very much on the requirements of the software. Some software requires more memory and so forth. But I definitely think that you should, once there is like a clear, like a Dockerized version of the software or something, you should reach out to people like to companies like PikaPods so that they can support your system, so that you can go to that Spanish university or whatever. You can say like, hey, you can host it yourself, or you can use our partner and just host it like for $2 or like $3 or whatever that is.
Exactly. My dream would be that there's small firms that do implementation services of Shelf, and they actually maybe skin them and create their own like very industry specific versions of Shelf. It's like, hey, we've used this and we've spun it up for like the cleaning industry, and actually we have all these modules that are for this. In the end of the day, that's what would make me the happiest. But also try to give like a great experience to all our cloud customers, of course. That would be also very nice.
So maybe just a little bit about the business. You mentioned that you had a co-founder at the beginning, and you started like a coding shop, like a software development shop with your roommate, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so where is that agency at this moment? Like, where it's at?
So that agency is still alive, but let's say the Shelf is more default alive at the moment, because like both me and him are putting a lot of effort into Shelf. So the agency is still running. We have like a lot of legacy clients that we build software for them, and we're just like maintaining it. We're doing the transition. Like we still are trying to maintain a lot of ownership of Shelf. So we don't want to sell too much equity to investors or anything like that to have runway. So we're basically also doing consultancy work and still maintaining stuff for people so that we pay our salaries and we continue working here until we really cannot manage it anymore. And then we might be looking into Stripe Atlas and like setting up a company or something like that and have the good infrastructure for selling shares. Yeah.
So basically, what would be really interesting is how many people did you have creating Shell? Like, is it just you and your co-founder?
Just me, my co-founder, and one of the guys that works with us in our agency that does like UX, UI design. Basically, I was scoping out features and giving him requirements, and he was translating them into like desktop mobile device designs. And then we were coding this like just in-house with my my co-founder Nikolai. So he has like 90% of the code submissions on the repository. But the whole brand, the whole marketing pages, comparisons, blogs, everything, we just produce them ourselves. A bit of trial and error there, but so I would say 2.5 people were building Shelf. Yeah.
Just like the TV show, 2.5 men.
Yes. Yeah, well, because this guy works half time for us, so 2.5, yeah.
And so oh, sorry, Mikael, please go on.
Yeah. So what about, I noticed you have a bit over 2,000 backlinks right now. So what are your methods on how you've been generating those? Only like 80 of them are no follows. So basically they are pretty good ones.
I would be lying if I would know exactly where I got those. Let's say that I've been like 10 years building websites and building a network on this. So I've asked some favors. I've asked some people like, hey, send me like, help me like increase the DR for this property. I dabble a little bit around SEO, but I think that things like X now or Twitter, it's a great place to connect with other founders. And I started from the beginning. I found the hashtag build in public. And I was like, okay, let's go all in on this. I'm going to tweet how we're building this thing and basically building the least sexy startup in the whole building public community, because everybody was, as you said, building like really cool AI GPT wrappers, or image profile spinners, or like all these very cutting edge stuff. And I was trying to solve a very boring problem. But I thought it doesn't matter. I'm just going to continue talking about this. And over time, it managed to pick up some steam. I connected with some people. And then you notice that either they mention you on their blog, or once you launch on Product Hunt, you get some backlinks. You talk with some people that want to contribute to the code base. They put you on their GitHub profiles, or maybe they have their own little dev sites where they show their portfolio and they're also linking to you there. But I have not reached like a really good PR DR90 link, let's say, or like a really high one, like
buy a bunch.
Or buy a bunch or pay to win. I must admit, I do get regularly emails in which they're like, hey, you can buy Forbes Africa link insert for $2,000. And I'll be like,
wow.
Yeah, straight.
I wouldn't even know what to do, like what should I do now?
Yeah.
So, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think your approach and building your startup in public is very good. Creating blog content, talking on Twitter, and maybe just doing content marketing makes a lot of sense. And you did mention a couple of times that you are solving a boring problem. It's a boring startup. And in my opinion, most successful startups or companies in general are solving real but boring problems. So the sexy startups, the AI, like Whisper API, OpenAI, and all the good stuff that they do, and all those, cool mobile applications. I think it's like maybe the 10-15% of the market, and everything else, once you go to the enterprise mode, it gets very boring, very mundane, but it solves real problems. So ERP systems, PLM systems. We worked with one client who provided a PLM system for fashion industry. It wasn't really a sexy solution. It was very much just, making sure that the product life cycle is all mapped out and planned and so forth. But they signed some of the biggest companies I know.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this guy, Naval Ravikant.
Yeah.
He's like he's like one of my heroes.
And his blog is fantastic.
He's like I really look up to him. I should have his picture hanging on my wall. But he said something that got stuck in my head, and he says, play long-term games with long-term people. And when I was thinking about Shelf, I was like, hey, in software, if you're really gonna go for asset management, if you're really gonna register everything, if you're gonna go through the trouble of producing like hundreds of these asset labels, all for each of your assets, honestly, that's a long-term game. And that's the people I want to play with. I want to play the entrepreneurship game with long-term people. So it really made me think like, oh, work on shelf. I had these guys' voice in behind my head saying like, hey, work on this problem. So indeed, I don't know if we're going to build like a very remarkable company, but I do think that if we build a company where other teams deeply rely on it and they care about uptime, they care about like the availability of the tool, I'll be very happy. And I think that I've been running my agency for 10 years with the most ugly, antiquated bookkeeping software ever. And I think that there's certain tools, there's certain software categories where the churn is low because the switchover cost is just so painful.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to create a switchover vendor lock situation here. You can export everything, but I do believe that I will have a longer engagement with my accounts than if I was doing a let's see how our baby looks like AI generator, where you put like pictures of a couple and it's like, oh, this is how your baby's gonna look like. I think those ones you get a hockey stick, but then it goes down to zero real fast.
Yeah, there are trends, like 3 to 6 months trends, right? Something blows up on TikTok and everybody is doing it, and then in like 6 months you don't even remember it. And there are mega trends, so like sustainability, conscious, consumerism, that kind of stuff that is going to be here in like 5-10 years. And I think making bets on long-term stuff just makes a lot more sense. And I have a really funny story regarding the UI. I invest in in the grand scheme of things, a small investment companies fund here in Finland. And I'm a big fan of, it's like an index fund and like very low cost and stuff like that. So, and I'm very busy with my work already. I don't want to invest into something that requires me to constantly keep track of how things are going. I just want to invest in something boring and forget about it. So, but I really like their company, and they have like the most boring website, the most horrible interface. And I was like, I reached out to them and I said like, hey, let's talk about, UX, let's talk about making your website better. And then I met with, I think it was like managing director or somebody like that, or business developer, like a person in charge of business development. And I said like, hey, I'm ready to do this, maybe even for like no money, for free, because I want to build my portfolio. I was just starting out and so forth. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, could you explain? Could you elaborate? And he said, this is all done by purpose. So we don't upgrade. And our website looks like it came out of like 90s on purpose, because it creates an image that we are not wasting money. And we are very, very lean. We just want to get things done. And we pass on the savings to you. If we had a beautiful website, animation everywhere, it would feel like we are not the cost-efficient solution that we are. So I thought about it for a while, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So maybe the software that you mentioned that has very, minimalistic and maybe ugly interface, maybe that's on purpose as well.
It concurs very well with their price, let's say. Like it reflects the price, but I can understand that, like the whole notion of like keep the main thing. So the main thing is like low cost. Like we're not gonna have. I think there were brands that were built on this. What is it, like the Dollar Shave Club, that was like, hey, our razor blades are cheap because we're not paying this guy Federer like a couple $100 million. So there you go. That's why it's cheap. But yeah, I can understand that. But for me, it's more like the like a category in which you might have a more long-term vision. Moreover, I do agree with you about the giga trends. And a trend I see, so I live in the Netherlands, and a year ago I could just buy a can of Coca-Cola for the price that I would see. Now I have to buy the can of Coca-Cola, but when I check out, I have to pay 25 cents on top of it because actually they want me to recycle it. So if I look at this, companies are not being asked to be mindful and resourceful with their assets. Honestly, companies are buying stuff left and right, and they're just left over anywhere in a storage. There is not a focus of, let's increase the visibility of your assets, let's extend the lifetime of your assets, because it's literally not a great practice to be producing so much e-waste or to have so much wastage. So if my tool can help companies at least see and visualize what they own without the accounting side of things, but just pure asset visibility, I think I'm contributing to this giga trend, which I see is going to happen. I think that companies will start being asked to be more responsible with their purchases in the stuff that they acquire.
Yeah. One thing that came to mind just like a second ago, imagine, and this is just me dreaming a little bit, but imagine if you like added, I don't know, like an old, MacBook to your system, right? Like an old one that is maybe from like year 2018 or something. Imagine if you crowdsourced what all the cool stuff you can do with this MacBook, right? Like you could, for example, donate it to developing country. You could format it
Absolutely.
and turn it into maybe like a home automation device. So I think in many cases, there are many uses for specifically like devices that are old school, like maybe old tablet. Many people don't even know what you can do with an old tablet. Like if you don't want to sell it because it's too cheap, you don't want to bother with it, what can you do? Like how can you make use of the asset that you no longer need?
Man, I see so many opportunities in I think that the asset database, like, it's kind of part of the life cycle of an IT asset. Like the disposal is also an important part. And I think that but then again, like this is also me thinking way ahead of time. Like what if there was an actual fiscal incentive for your company to recycle or dispose your assets responsibly? That could actually offset some tax costs, or that can be an incentive for that. A lot of companies will start registering everything, of course, right? Like it's like if you want somebody to do something, you just tax them, and they will start moving in that direction. But it's not the primary reason why we built it. It's just that, as you said, like I just really like talking with people that have to deal with these issues, and it's just nice to try to give somebody a, like you guys do like marketing, content, growth. Man, we're being offered the most shiny, coolest tools every single minute because we're just like a very interesting target market to create beautiful products for. But if you're a IT asset manager, if you're a facility manager, you're an office person, like it's not like you're getting approached with like beautiful, cool stuff to work on a regular basis. So it's also nice to be able to reach out to those people. Yeah.
One thing that also comes to mind when it comes to running a successful business, I was really impressed. I signed up for Checkly HQ. It's basically like a smart service monitoring tool where you can define your own scripts. You can write Playwright scripts, for example, that test your software. They run it every single minute from different location, data centers, all that good stuff. But what really surprised me, it's a substantially large company, in my opinion, already. Maybe they have 100 employees already, and they have like serious backing and stuff like that. But once I signed up for their premium plan, so I switched from free to paid customer, I received an email from their CEO saying like, I want to have a short interview with you if possible. And then, a link to his calendar. And the CEO actually met with me for half hour, asked me what problems I'm trying to solve, where are my pain points,
very good.
How I'm using the software now, why I'm not making use of the advanced features. And then he was like, good, thank you. I really appreciate and have a great day.
Yep.
So I think this is the right approach long-term, talking to your customers and solving real problems, because it feels like every time there is a new GS framework coming out, there is something really cool in the Python world, ChatGPT is killing, and we kind of lose track that we are solving problems for real people, and unless we solve it well and in the way that actually, allows them to do what they want to do, it will not be a very good solution long term. So
well, right now, everybody's just caring about getting new clients and nobody cares about the old ones. So that is also, when they're just trying to attract new ones, they try to be nice for a second, but yeah, they don't never ask any of the current clients like what's up and how it's doing. Every time when they contact, they always contact, because they try to sell you something more.
Yeah. And yeah, I think people notice this stuff, huh? You kind of expect it and notice it, and it's just like, I think that there are options and there are ways to be a bit more kind or more human or more like solution driven when it comes to your product offering. Show your intentions. Well, of course, like we need to keep the lights on, but I think you can pick your flavor, pick your style. And I think like Artem, like that endorsement you just gave to this CEO and this company is fantastic. That is the right leadership that I expect from a company that is trying to provide a solution. We're not selling papers. It's not a commodity yet. Once we're selling Post-its, then yeah, you don't need to contact the person that much. You just buy in bulk. But it's like very specialized solutions. Very important to talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you talk to your clients?
I literally do like a very similar thing that you say. I started recently, so I think we have like 800 user accounts. So it's hard to, like I'm in a different time zone than most of our users. Most of our users actually are in two places. I would say that 20% of our users are from Japan.
Weird. Oh wow!
And we got featured in some kind of like PC Mag stuff, and apparently in Japan now, like if you live in a home association, like in a complex, in a building complex, you must do maintenance of it, and they're looking for solutions. So they found Shelf as being a very easy way to generate the codes and to track maintenance because we have this notepad. So I'm not managed to talk with many of these Japanese users, maybe two. But what I do is that I send a mail, introduce myself. I'm very curious about what sort of problem you're trying to solve with our solution, and I send them a cal.com link instead of Calendly, which is like the open source version of Calendly, and I try to just talk to them for like 15 minutes to half an hour. We'll try to understand what problems do they have. I've talked to people that are building contractors, like they are responsible for buildings, and they're like, no, we're gonna put codes on all the fire extinguishers, and so that we can like get a notification if we need to do something. Or I've talked with teleproduction companies. They're like, guys, we're broadcasting live TV shows. We need to make sure that we have a full overview of how much equipment we have and who has access to it. To like some universities that are like, hey, we want to like work with you on making this whole like reservation. So mostly digital, mostly via calls, and try to do stuff as synchronous as possible. So a very similar play as you did, Artem. Send a Loom video. Once there's an interesting sign up, send a Loom video, an introduction, and a Cal link, and try to take it from there. And sometimes take some late night calls, let's say, here from my garage where I am currently at.
Awesome. By the way, a really good background, like Christmas lights and whatnot, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Looking very good. So maybe before we wrap up, maybe you would like to demo the product. I think it's always beautiful just to see the product, and especially getting a walkthrough from the founder is always awesome.
Course.
So if you could do like a short demo, the most important features of your product, I think our viewers would love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So let me see. I'm going to share my screen. This is like the asset inventory view from Shelf, where you basically see the count of your total assets. Just to run you through it, we have a couple of features. Like you have a workspace where you can add team members. We use them to give custody of an asset. So for instance, let's say that you have a laptop, you want to check it out to one of your employees. You can use this to say that this person has access to this object. Moreover, we just are releasing a couple of custom fields, so you can add new custom fields to your objects. Right now we have text, but on our test environment we have like date pickers, long text, booleans, multi-select, and stuff like this. Moreover, we have a couple of concepts, like you can create locations. Locations are places where you can, let's say, group assets. For instance, in the environment that I have open, we were talking with a construction company that has a couple of job sites. And this is a good way for the asset manager to be able to see all the assets that are supposed to be in one location. They can manage them, so move the assets from location to location around. For instance, this wallpaper steamer in this case is in the location B, Pro Shop, and you can click it and it will just swap the locations. So you can also manage your assets like this. Additionally, we have like a couple of features like tags. Tags are things that you can add to your asset, unlimited tags. And actually with tags is that I want to start creating like different tag workflows. So like for instance, if you add the tag retired, that something happens, or pre-owned, you can create them yourself. Additionally, we have categories. Categories, like just like any other CMS, is like a singular grouping of your assets. And all of that results in having like an asset inventory page. One of the things that we've done to help our customers, let's say, locate their assets faster is that sometimes the inventories are pretty large. Actually, this is a small environment, but we have users that have like, let's say, 1,000 assets. So sometimes to find information is a bit tricky. So what we're working on is to create a very good, like, let's call like a central search bar where you can ideally find everything. So for instance, in this case, I can look for a team member like Unar, his name, and I can run it and see all the assets that he has access to. I can also use a tag pre-owned. It should load 2 assets. I can also do a combined search here. So I can do crane category. Well, it's only one, but let me see. Let me put something like hand tools. I think hand tools, we have a few. So I can type hand tools. It should pull something, and then I can also add space and add a name of a person like Igor, and it should locate that one asset. Moreover, I think that we have released that you can also search inside the asset fields. So let's say that you added a serial number, like ABC123XD. If you hit enter, it should find the asset that has that serial number inside the descriptions. That's when it comes to the search part. And then when you open the asset page itself, we're working on this layout a little bit, but some of the stuff that you can see here, I'm going to zoom in, is that each asset has an availability status. This asset is available. Why is it available? It's because nobody is currently possessing it. You can at any point give custody of an asset to a team member, and then it becomes unavailable or in custody. It also shows you in which job site it is, and then you can leave notes. Like on GitHub, you can write Markdown, and you can write any sort of information that you might want to have. Moreover, each asset in your database will create its own QR code label. This QR code label, you can download it and print it, but you can also, in a future update, just use a thermal label printer and just click P, and it just prints you a tag that you can attach on the object. This tag is what allows you to interact with your database from like the physical world. Additionally, you can see here that you have like the information of the assets that you define, like the category, location, the tags, the owner, and the last scan location data. Like, unfortunately, I'm using my phone as my camera, so I cannot demo this. But this is a scan that I did on my office. So you can see I live in a town called Arnhem. And I scanned it on a Safari browser running iOS from these coordinates. So this helps you determine whether the location where the object should be matches the location where it was last scanned. So this in essence is like what our tool does. And of course, like there's a lot of other stuff, like you can change everything about the asset and operate all of this from your mobile phone. But this is what we have. Also, we have like exports and imports of the whole database, which unfortunately these are part of like one of our paid plans. So yeah, this is the tool that we have for now. And as I said, like we are trying to work out a lot of the behaviors of what happens once you scan these codes. There we have a whole path of views that should be available for you. But yeah, this is Shelf what we have for now, and the features and functionalities we have. Like I'm just super excited for the the bookings and reservation module of the application.
Yeah, to me, your dashboard actually looks really nice. So you've been doing a good work. It really looks, very professional.
It's very clean. It's very clean with a dash of color. I really like it. I think it works well on mobile devices because it's very simple in a sense. So it works well when you're in responsive view. Awesome. So I think this is pretty much it. This has been a pleasure, and I am already, since I'm moving now from one apartment to another, I am going to document everything. I could use it for that as well, right? I could document all my stuff when I'm moving.
I actually think you can do like, actually this is a use case that I really like, and maybe something that I can announce here. We're going to, in order to monetize Shelf, and to not ask people to pay us for subscriptions, we're going to create the concept of orphaned unlinked codes that you can buy on Amazon, for instance. So you can buy 200 asset tags that you can put them on a box. Let's say you put a box, boom, you stick it on a box, you put all this stuff there, you scan it, and you add it to your database, and you say, oh, this is full of shoes, a red hat, this and that. And with this search that we have, you could be able to say like, where's my red hat? Oh, it should be on box 3 because you registered it there. So yes, you could use it for moving and for inventarization of your boxes. Of course, it's not the intended use case, but I also see it as a powerful way to use the technology. Yeah,
for sure. Well, before we wrap up, what is your goal for the next couple of months? What are you working on in terms of your business? You mentioned a few features that are coming out soon, but like for you personally, like what milestone are you trying to get at?
That's a very, very good question, a very confronting question. I would say that for us now, we are trying to incorporate Shelf properly as a company. So it's a milestone to reach that, to become, to continue some of the conversations we've been having with investors. And for me, I would say that at the moment we have like, let's say 750 accounts. If by the end of the year we can like get to 1,500, like I'll be very happy. So a doubling on the user base, I think we can manage. I think I will have to do a lot of clever content, a lot of clever appearances like this, and just to create some smart funnels and try to do that. But on the other side is like many of the demos I take, I know that we're missing that last 20% of features. So I really need to push to get those going. And then I think we're going to reach our targets a little bit better.
That sounds like a plan. Carlos,
yes.
It's been a pleasure to have you on our podcast. It's been really, really insightful.
Thank you.
I made a lot of notes in my notebook, so I have some stuff to think about later on.
Where are you guys most active at? Are you most active on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or YouTube, or like where do you want to be most?
Yeah, LinkedIn is for me as well, probably. Yeah.
Awesome.
LinkedIn probably. So let's connect on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Make sure we stay in touch. But Carlos, thank you so much, and good luck with your project. It looks awesome, and I think you will have one more paid user very soon.
Nice. Thank you guys. And well, you have one more subscriber, and I'll happily hype you up. And I will send you an intro to Sandra, which I think it would be really nice for you to talk.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
All
one.
right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.